Hello YouTube, Van Prepper here again. This is the second installment of my three-part series on the best series of books that I've read. The second one, and I know you're probably looking at this if you haven't read these books and you're saying, are you kidding me? This is the Harry Potter series. The first book, absolutely written for kids. It's a little rough to go through for an adult. Luckily for me, I read this probably fourth or so in the order that I read the books, because I started with number 2. I was stuck one day in an airport in Dallas, Fort Worth, waiting to fly home, and I had read the book I brought with me, and so I stopped in the gift shop, and I had no interest in Harry Potter, but I had just seen the first movie because my wife and I were counting for the movie. That's where an independent company will call you and have you go do a check at the movies, and you count how many people are in a particular showing, and then you get the paperwork from the theater and see that if they match up, to make sure that the theater is doing a good job of policing, selling a ticket and making sure that people go to the right film, so that the film companies know people aren't seeing their movies for free. So I had already seen the first movie, so I kind of knew what was going on, and I picked up Chamber of Secrets just for something to read because it was cheap. And the books kind of pick up here. They get a little darker, more involved of a story, and that process just continues to go as you read through the books. The third book is The Prisoner of Azkaban. The fourth book was my favorite, The Goblet of Fire. The fifth book, The Order of the Phoenix, an excellent book. Half-Blood Prince was the sixth book, and of course The Deathly Hallows was the seventh book. Don't get the idea that these books are kids' books. I know so many adults who've read these books, who love these books. I used to work with, at my last job, I think of the technicians that we had, the electronic technicians. It started with me. I was the first one to read them, and everybody made fun of me, and then one of my friends read them, and then he started telling people about them, and then it just kind of steamrolled, and by the end of about a year, I think just about every technician on second shift was reading these books or had read these books and really enjoyed them. And I have a really fond place in my heart for these books, because when my wife and I first got married, we saw the first movie about a week after we got married. And one of the things we wanted to do was we both really like to read, and we wanted to have something that would make sure that we knew we were going to fight a lot in the first year. Everybody said we were. That's kind of the adjustment of going from a single person to sharing your life with somebody. So we wanted something that would force us to spend time together, even if we didn't want to. So what we did was we read these books together, and I don't mean we read them at the same time. I mean starting in book number 3, because I read book number 2, and then I told my wife, this is really good, you should read it, and she read it. And starting in book number 3, what we did is we would read these together. I would read her a chapter out loud, she would read me a chapter out loud, and we kind of made a deal. We would not read by ourselves. We would not read ahead. That forced us, even if we were struggling, and didn't really want to spend time with each other, to spend time with each other in order to keep the story going. And we just, it was just a wonderful experience that my wife and I shared together. And I'm so glad that we had that time. We just celebrated our 12th anniversary last night, and we were talking about what were our favorite memories of our 12 years together. What things really stood out. And one of the things that stood out for both of us was the time that we spent reading these books together, over the course of a few years, one chapter at a time out loud. At one point I was on third shift and she was on first shift, and we just didn't see each other very much. So what we were doing is tape recording. She would tape record herself reading a chapter, and then I would tape record, as I listened to that and read one, I would then, before I went to work the next day, while she was already at work, I would tape record myself reading a chapter, and she would play that and listen to it while she read and followed along in that chapter. It was just a real wonderful time of spending time together and growing together, and a fond memory that we have. Hope that doesn't sound too corny, and I hope you guys don't lose a lot of respect for me for the Harry Potter books. Great books. If you haven't read them, get rid of that stigma that you got in your head and just go out and give them a shot. Excellent books. And unlike the Dark Tower series, no crap ending on this. J.K. Rowling knows how to wrap up a series. I hope you like this. I got one more series on my favorite books coming. one more video, and I am Van Prepper. Happy shooting.